Today's question is, what is meant by call those things which are not as though they were in Romans chapter 4, verse 17? In this video, I'll answer that question from a biblical perspective. Then afterwards, as always, I'll share some helpful resources, so stick around until the end. The context of Romans chapter 4 is salvation by faith. Paul uses the example of the patriarch Abraham to show how our relationship with God is based on faith and not the works of the law. Romans chapter 4, verse 17 states, "As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations." Abraham is our father in the sight of God, in whom he believed. The God who gives life to the dead and calls into being things that were not. The truth that God calls into being things that were not is expressed various ways in various translations. God calleth those things which be not as though they were, KJV. Calls into existence the things that do not exist, ESV. Calls into being that which does not exist, NASB, and summons the things that do not yet exist as though they already do, NET. It is possible to understand the last part of Romans chapter 4, verse 17 as meaning that God has the ability to create ex nihilo. This idea is brought out in translations that say that God creates new things out of nothing, the NLT, or simply creates new things, the CEV. The nothing in this context would be the deadness of Sarah's womb, mentioned in verse 19, and the new things that God creates would be Abraham's offspring, mentioned in verse 18. God gives life to the dead and creates something from nothing. The other translations emphasize the decree of God, the fact that he calls or summons. When God speaks, it's as good as done. He changed Abram's name to Abraham, father of a multitude, while Sarah was still childless. God spoke of Abraham's descendants when as yet there were none. God truly has the ability to speak of impossible things and, in the speaking, make them possible. Abraham heard God's promise and believed it. That faith was credited to Abraham as righteousness, Genesis chapter 15, verse 6, and provides the example for all who would later exercise faith in God, Romans chapter 4, verse 11. Looking into the future, God can speak of things that do not exist as if they do exist. God has power over death and the ability to create life. Abraham believed this, and so do we if we are spiritual descendants of Abraham. See Galatians chapter 3, verse 29. Some word of faith groups misuse Romans chapter 4, verse 17 to teach the name it, claim it doctrine. According to this false doctrine, we can speak God's word over our finances, our bodies, our automobiles, etc., and see miraculous results to our benefit. All we need is a confession and enough faith, and God will transform the physical realm into an environment of blessing. We can speak those things that are not as though they are. Sit back and enjoy the fruit of our words. Of course, Romans chapter 4, verse 17 is not remotely about the power of our words. It's about the power of God's promises and his faithfulness to keep those promises. Isaac, the son of promise, was not born because Abraham confessed or declared certain words, but because God promised he would be. Want to learn more? Subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Visit gotquestions.org for more great content, and check out the details section below this video. There's one book I recommend along with several related questions. If you'd like to learn about Bible Munch, or if you're interested in bite-sized devotionals, subscribe to Bible Munch on YouTube. It's linked right here. Now remember, you got questions, the Bible has answers, and we'll help you find them.